Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show. Welcome to Thursday, April 14th, 2022. This is National Ex-Spouses Day. I have a really phenomenal ex-spouse. I joke about her all the time about that she's fairly perfect. She used to only have one really big flaw, and that was her choice of men. But it looks like she's resolved that one pretty well. So big ups to my ex and my baby mother and all that. Big ups to Lynn. As always, I want to give a big shout out to Crazy Horse Morgan and Brandy Raymar for always holding it down and really helping me flesh out some of these ideas. And actually, today's show is an example of one of those ideas. I told y'all we had some amazing stuff coming for you all, and it's here. Before I forget, do not forget to like and subscribe. Whatever platform you're on, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you're on, just make sure you take an opportunity to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and it helps us get a better sense of where our viewers and our audience members are, so that we can make sure that we keep bringing you the stuff that you need, the information that you want. Well, today's show is going to be a little bit different. Today's show is going to be about the Grinding Gang. That's my company. The Grinding Gang is a community of small business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, and people who are interested in small business and helping the small business community. We get together and we support each other. As a company, we provide technical assistance. We do things like grant writing, business plan writing, but we do a lot of executive coaching and one-on-one coaching, small group sessions, and a lot of digital tools like videos and the like. So we thought it would be a really good idea to kind of give you a sense of what we do. And we thought about it. And we're like, well, you know what we could do? I could just go through and give an example. And we've done a couple things like that. But what we thought would work even better is if we just let you see what we do. So to that end, we have three things for you today. The first is we have an opportunity for you all to listen in to a one-on-one business coaching session. One of my clients agreed to allow me to record the session. We edited it up, took a lot of her personal business information out. But to give you a sense of the type of advice that we give at the Grinding Gang, and also how we engage our clients. The next thing after that is a small class session that I was teaching. Again, taking a lot of the feedback or taking a lot of the voices and things of the students out. It's more of an opportunity for you to get a sense of the type of information that we share in the sessions. And finally, it's a digital video that we do on sales. Again, just to give you a sense of the type and quality of information that we have available to you. Well, all right, you know what? Let's just jump straight into it. So in trying to braid those together, what you are doing is making a whole life. When you have work-life balance, they normally talk about that in the context of a job, right?
Right.
The reason that you have work-life balance in the context of a job is that your employer has paid for a certain amount of your time. So let's say 40 hours a week. Your employer has given you money for 40 hours a week. They don't want to receive less than what they've paid for. On the other side, you have sold 40 of your hours a week. You don't want to give them more than they have paid for. So that balance becomes this kind of, again, this pull, this tension between what you are obligated to give the employer and what you want to retain for yourself. The problem, or the difference, not even a problem, the difference with being an entrepreneur is that it is all your time.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of people in our lives assume if you don't have to answer to somebody else, you are free to do whatever it is that you want to do. But the thing is that that awareness becomes central to your survival as an entrepreneur. The awareness that there are going to be portions of this that you don't like, and dispelling some of those myths, not just for you in your active mind, but also in your subconscious, in your behavior, in your patterns, and also the boundaries that you set for other people. It's harder. And so some of it, what you may find isn't that you are not doing things, because that's one of the first things that many entrepreneurs assume, is that, you've been taught to take responsibility. So you take responsibility sometimes for shit that's not even yours. And it's okay to be like, no, I can't do it. That I call bullshit is that you don't let your heart get in the way. There isn't this idea in entrepreneurship that everything should be about money. Everything should be about logic. That's not true. You don't change who you are because you become a business owner. Because you start a business, that doesn't take away your empathy. That doesn't take away your love. That doesn't take away your caring. You are still you. And there is nothing wrong with being you. Move on from that point. Who says that that's what you're supposed to do?
I don't know.
But
I guess society. I don't know.
But what? I'm sorry. Does society pay any of your bills or make you feel good?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. Just reframing how you are deciding to do things. If you love him and that love feeds you, why wouldn't you eat? Right. If again, I don't know this dude. I don't know if it's a healthy relationship. So I'm assuming that it is. Okay. So that would be a separate conversation. But let's assume that this relationship is healthy, right?
Right.
If the relationship feeds you, it supports you, and because you're not just the business owner. That's what happens when you go to work. You have to leave all of your personal stuff behind because your employer didn't pay for that. But you are starting your own, so all of you needs to show up. I've met business owners who are making a lot of money and are miserable as fuck because they prioritize money and now they're fucked up inside. I also have people, one of the best stories that I have is when I first started business consulting back in 2000. Yeah, in 2000. I had just finished my MBA and I studied and I love business. I love everything about business. And I read all the case studies and I knew what to do and I knew how to help people. And my first clients were friends of mine. They still make amazing food. Their food is phenomenal. And I was like, well, I can help you come up with a plan to grow your business. They're like, we need some business help. And so I worked on a plan and I presented it to them in a couple of weeks. I was going to turn them into a regional restaurant chain within 7 to 12 years. They looked at the plan and said, I don't think this works. I don't think this is for us. And I was like, oh no, because I thought, maybe you didn't think you can do it, but I was going to be there and I identified what resources that we were going to be able to pull. And they were like, no, we don't want to do this. We want to work with our customers. And I was like, well, I mean, that's not how you make a lot of money. And they were like, no, I get that, but we enjoy the work. We enjoy cooking. We enjoy the time we get to spend together building recipes. For them, their business needed to be an integrated part of their life for it to make sense. If it wasn't going to bring them together as a couple, they didn't want to do it. And that changed everything about how I engage business. Because I came out of school like all these other business consultants. The book told me that you want to make a bunch of money, so I'm going to come here and try to force you to make a bunch of money. And if you don't want to do this, I don't understand what's wrong with you. Why are you trying to be who cares what you like? Let's just get this paper. But they taught me that for some people, it has to be more than that. Now, whatever your goals are, whatever motivates you, whatever drives you, that is absolutely appropriate. But be honest with you. because denying who you are to yourself will only lead to ruin, because it's not like you're going to change. You will sneak up on yourself eventually. About is a natural function. It is a natural function of the stress of entrepreneurship. You are trying something. You have a lot of things happening in life simultaneously, right?
Right.
That's a lot for any, and some of these are new things you've never tried before.
Yeah.
Why would it not be stressful to try to figure it out? Have you ever watched a kid try to figure out like a new toy or open a box or whatever? They get very frustrated.
Yep.
You don't get frustrated opening it because you've done it before. Like, how many times have you opened a jar? It's not that big a deal for you.
Right.
But for them, they don't even like twist which way. I just see them touch the top, shake it a little bit, and then the top comes off. They don't understand the twisting motion. They don't understand, like, sometimes you got to grab it this way and turn the bottom this way. Sometimes you got to run hot water on it. Sometimes you got to loosen it up with a knife. Like, they don't understand these things. And so for all they have is that I've seen somebody else grab a jar, put a hand on the side, put a hand on the top, shake it a little bit, and open it. I am trying to do that, and it's not working, and they get frustrated because they don't understand. They have seen the vision. They have seen themselves with the open jar. They have gone through what they believe to be the same behaviors that you did to open the jar, but they are getting a different result. That's why we started this program, because we want to make sure you know that it's not just as easy as grabbing from the side and grabbing from the top, shaking it and open it. There's a lot more that goes into it. What also happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is that as you put your hand on the side, as you put your hand on the top, as you shake it and you turn it and nothing happens, now you start doubting, well, maybe what's in the jar isn't for me. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe. And what it does is that the next time you want to reach for a jar, another jar, you don't reach for it with all of the zeal. You hesitate a little bit. You think about it, and maybe you don't put all the effort into it as you want. Now it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, I can't even do that. And that's how we sneak into, especially if we have been trained, because sometimes the lives that we've led up to this point have trained us to please other people. One of the ways that we get taught to do that is by thinking lowly of ourselves. If we think low of ourselves, it means that we have to do more in order to make the people that we want to please happy. Now, while that's helpful in developing a business architecture, trying to live your life in that space becomes very difficult. And it leads to things like what feels like procrastination, but really is coping delay. Like you are trying, your mind is uncertain that it can do it. So it comes up with other stuff like, we're not ready to do that yet. We're not ready to do that yet. You want to, you cognitively want to, but your subconscious pushes back and gets you distracted, makes you tired, other things seem more important, or just that you can't do it. And that's it. Some of this is really about the kindness that you display and the patience that you display to yourself. One of the other things about being your worst critic, one of the ways to address that is to think of somebody else who is similarly situated to you, somebody who's in a similar circumstance. And then when you feel things or say things to yourself or feel a way about yourself, ask yourself, would you tell them to feel that way about themselves? Because for those of us who are harsh critics of ourselves, we tend to give other people the grace and mercy that we don't afford ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
If that be the case, then use somebody else as a straw man. Give me somebody that you know that is in a similar circumstance, that you believe is in a similar circumstance to you.
My best friend.
Your best friend.
Yeah.
So think about the last time you were hard or critical on yourself. Okay, tell me when you thought of it.
Today.
Okay. Now, if your best friend came to tell you the same situation, that she was in the same situation you were in, that she had the same thoughts, she was in the same situation you were in, would you tell her that she should feel the way you felt about yourself? She should feel that way about herself?
No, not at all.
But do you see how that changes everything, though?
Yeah, I do.
So whenever you feel a negative thought, and this actually really does help with the procrastination as well, because it's not just one thing. You know what I mean? Like, as an entrepreneur, you are mastering your mind. As an employee, you master skills so that your employer wants you to have. So if your employer wants you to write, they'll help you develop your writing skills. If your employer wants you to learn how to flip burgers, they'll teach you how to flip burgers, and you'll get experience there. They'll do trainings for you. But think about where you've been that anyone has ever trained you how to use your mind for your own benefit.
Okay.
For many of us, this journey of entrepreneurship is one of the first times we are being free to actually just think what we want to think. And that's confusing and scary. Why do you think you should have the answer to any of my questions or anybody's questions?
I don't know. I think society has kind of made us believe that we know everything when in actuality, there's nothing wrong with not knowing things. It actually makes you more knowledgeable if you stay open-minded.
There you go. But I also want you to think about this. In the we're on the phone what, 20 minutes roughly?
Yeah.
So we've been on this call for 20 minutes, and you have identified that 3 of your goals or 3 of the things that make you feel bad or things that you have not achieved have come from society. You can't even identify who society is. But think about what that says. How many other things, how many other goals, and how many other structures and how many other archetypes are you holding yourself accountable to that you didn't choose?
Probably a lot.
Yeah, but do you see how this deconstructionist thinking sets you free?
Yeah. It's like reprogramming your mindset.
Anytime you start thinking about, well, I haven't met this goal, who set the goal? If it's somebody external from you, then figure out, do you need to meet it? Like, why? Just because they said it, like, is it a contractual obligation? Okay. Is it something you committed to? Okay. But somebody can't just bring you a goal or say, this is your goal. Like, who the fuck are you? on the second side of this is that if you created the goal, you made that up with a specific set of circumstances in mind. If those circumstances don't exist or something has changed, why wouldn't you change the goal? So what is the big deal about not helping achieving a goal? It's just something you made up. You could make up something new. You could change it. You were not committed to that. Now, again, it changes when you have decided to commit to something. If you tell somebody you're going to deliver something, that changes the dynamic because now you've accepted the obligation. But other than that, what the fuck? If you say you're gonna make $100,000 this year and you don't, and that's why I'm always like, let's create a plan. Let's check benchmarks and check in because you can change this plan whenever. Like, I mean, I don't know, were you at where the facts? Show me some evidence. Show me something that is objective that we can both agree is a real thing. So for you to say that to say like, oh, William, I failed. It's like, okay, how? Who said? It's like, well, because I didn't hit the goals that I was supposed to. Who said that was a goal? Well, I did. So you're going to fail yourself? Like, you get to grade your own paper and you put an F on it? Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
but also think about how often we do that. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I always fuck this up. Oh, man, I can't believe, I'm a loser. I can't believe I failed this. Oh, my God, I got to do better. I can't believe they're doing better than me, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So people will tell you to not let your ego rule. There's sometimes, though, in entrepreneurship, when the deck is stacked so much against you that all you got is your ego and the will to push through. The issue isn't so much getting rid of your ego. It is moderating the negative influences and keeping your ego reasonable. Like, I have a large ego. Actually, and I tell people I am better than I tell you that I am because I only talk about the things that I have facts on. I only talk about, like, if I tell you that I'm great at business, I can run down facts and references to tell you that I am. I don't tell you that I'm a great human being because I don't know that to be a fact. I feel like I am, but I don't have that as a fact. Same thing with you. You get to choose. You are doing exactly the right thing with your efforts towards self-reflection, moderating your emotions, controlling your thoughts. You are on the exact right path. It is not an easy one because it's easy just to do what everybody else does because society has already told us that and they trained us for 20 some years and this is what we're supposed to be doing. See?
That this is hard. What you all are doing, the starting of a business is hard. And a lot of people don't necessarily share with you how hard it's going to be. Like with Ashley, a lot of people, when they talk to you about your business planning, they don't talk to you about making sandwich and going to pick up cookies. But those things and having to balance those things are part of the hard parts of business. But the other hard part of business is thinking about and learning new things. I know in the past, and actually I talked to a couple of members of the Winter 21 cohort,
The target market assignment and some of the other pieces and some of the conversations have been hard because they're uncomfortable, because you believe that this is your business, so you should have the answers. That is not the case. There is no reason you should know this stuff. That's why we're here to help you learn these things, to help you learn about business and how to put things together. So as you are going through some of the questions, as you are going through some of the exercises, it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be uncomfortable because you are learning something new. And a lot of times there's this is, what you're going through now is kind of like your business puberty or your business toddler stage. Like toddlers, for those of you all who have kids or been around kids, they are very frustrated all the time because they feel that they can move around and do stuff like they talk. It's not clear, but they think they talk. They think they sound like you. They walk. They think they walk like you. And then when you tell them like, hey, wait, you don't know how to do that. Hey, wait, they get frustrated. That's what the beginning portions of being an entrepreneur feel like. It feels like being a toddler because it is frustrating because you're learning so many new things, and the stuff you thought was real, the stuff you thought you knew, sometimes you found out that maybe you didn't know as much as you thought you did. And that's okay. That is part of the process. You should not expect yourself to already have the answers, because if you already had the answers, you would be doing it. Talked about that. I mentioned before that my job is to push you to a point where you don't have the answers to questions. Because once you get to a point where you don't have the answers to questions, that's where I can add some value. So don't be frustrated when I ask you something and you don't know the answer, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to help you find the answers or figure out how to find the answers to questions that you may have that you don't have them or have the answers already. So it's okay. The next thing is to make sure that the expectations that you have for your business, make sure you check those expectations. Make sure you take an opportunity and say, well, why do I think I should be able to do that? Or why do I think this person will give me money? Why do I think the person is going to be one of my customers? Why do I think this would actually, something that I'm trying should work? When you challenge those expectations, you have an opportunity to reassess what you're doing and figure out if you're doing the right thing. About that. As things come up in life, as things come up in your process, but your process in the Fosterpreneur program, or come up in your life in general, please don't hesitate to ask us for assistance. That's what we're here. Worst case scenario, you ask us for something and we're not able to do it. You say, hey, could you help with this? We don't have the resources. Sorry, and we don't know where to get the resources. But we are able to help with a number of things that aren't just about entrepreneurship. One of the alumni from a previous cohort contacted us yesterday. And he is looking to put his business to the side for a little while, or at least focus on getting a full-time job to pay bills. That's a very real part of his business. That was a very real part of his business plan. He was going to do a certain amount and see if he could make it living on his business for a while. And if he got to a point and he couldn't, then he was going to get a job. That's part of the business plan. And we were able to help him. He has a specialized background, and I have friends who are in that specialized background. And so within 24 hours, we were able to get his resume out to a friend who gave him some significant feedback so he can improve his resume, and we can help him find his options in the specialized field. So if you have any problems, please don't hesitate to ask us. Again, worst case scenario, we can't help. Best case scenario, we can help you change the entire trajectory of your business, of your life, find childcare, find a job, find some resources, find some technology, find something. So please don't hesitate to ask. And just in case there was any confusion, the next page is not up. The next page for the assignments is not up because we spend 2 weeks on the target customer. So we're going to circle back around to the target customer again on Monday. Next Thursday, we have a guest speaker. And I think Erica will be sending you all out some information about her either tomorrow or we'll have it at our Monday meeting.
Excuse me. So we're going to circle back around and do that. Circle back around on Monday to talk more about the target customer. And the reason that we spend so much time on the target customer is because the target customer is, at least in the way that we do it, is going to be central to your business success. What we are doing is that we're trying to figure out who our target customer is, to get to know them as intimately as possible so that we can build, especially in our awareness, that marketing aspect. If we understand who people are, we can market to them better and get them to take money out of their pockets and put it into ours. When you are at a job, there is normally somebody who tells you what you need to do. You go in, there's somebody to train you. There's somebody to show you around. There are manuals and stuff like that to read. For your business, none of that exists. There is none of that. You are starting from scratch, by and large. You are making decisions to determine what you do, to determine how you do it, to determine where things go. You are in charge of that. And this process is going to help you do that. One of the biggest challenges, well, there are a few large challenges that entrepreneurs tend to have in working with them over the years. But one of the big ones is that they have difficulty hiring employees. Even when they have the money to hire employees or contractors or whatever, they have a difficult time onboarding them appropriately. One of the reasons that they have a problem bringing people on is because they don't have any processes. They don't have any procedures. If you're always making stuff up and doing stuff by the seat of your pants, you just wake up and try to figure out, what do I do today to make some money or to keep the lights on, then how can you bring anybody in to support you? How can you tell them what to do? You don't have a plan. And so that's why we talk about moving from hustling to building a business. Because a hustler is all you, all day, every day. You get in, get it done, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow morning, get it in, get it done, go to sleep. You keep hustling because that's what you are. If you're a hustler, that's what you do. But when you build a business, there's infrastructure in place. There's a process. There are procedures. And so even if you're not there, you can say, hey, Rose, what I need you to do is to run this for me. Here's a list of things to do. Here's a list of people to contact. This is how you do it. The more of that information you have written down, the more of that you have available, the easier it will be to hire people. There's nothing worse than to hire somebody who's a great candidate, but you don't have your shit together, and then they end up getting pissed at you and leaving. So now you've wasted the money that you spent bringing them in, and you don't have anything to show for it because you weren't ready. Also, if you have a system in place, that means that you can hire less talented people. Now, I'm not saying just a warm body, but think of it this way. If you are a baker, like you are a world-renowned baker, I need you to make cakes, because it doesn't matter. It's something about you that needs to make cakes, because you do a wonderful job. It's something about the way you move your hands in your oven or whatever it is that makes your cakes wonderful. But if I have a recipe that is good and my clients like it, I don't need to be there. As long as somebody knows the difference between sugar and flour, I can leave them in and I can go out and do some other stuff to make money. But if your process has a bunch of secret ingredients and stuff that only you know, how can anybody help you? And so as we go through this process, we go into a level of detail, and I'm going to tell you this, the level of detail that you will know how to go in is more than most business owners on the street right now. I guarantee you that. Because most of them look at like 20, 30,000 feet, and that's it. They don't think they work in the detail. They kind of, like we talked about, the having your favorite outfit the day before school. You have it all laid out. Most of them just wake up in the morning and they don't even know if clothes are washed. They just trying to get to school. They don't even think about stuff like that because they got so much other stuff to do. We're not only planning your outfit for the first day of school, we're trying to put the whole year on lock. We want to make sure, like, even if you wear the same clothes over, now we have a schedule for washing clothes. We have a schedule to take them to dry cleaning. We have a schedule to make sure you get your shoes taken care of. Buying the laundry detergent, making sure you're paying the water bill. Do you see how that changes the dynamic? You might be fresh the first day of school, but how you looking by April?
I want you your senior year to be fly. Like everything from kindergarten to senior year. The more that we can, and again, that sounds ridiculous, but the more that we can plan it, the more you can focus on the things that pop up down the road, because you can bring other people in to help you. Like so let's say Ashley, again, you always catch the brunt of this. So, but you know what? I've decided, Ashley, that you won't be the target customer today, so you don't have to worry about that part. But like Ashley, if Ashley wants, let's say Ashley wants to just take a nap. Like she's like, look, I just need to take a nap. If Ashley had the contact information and had like, a little letter that somebody could take with them, somebody else could go get the cake. Go get the cookies. Ashley, and when she talks about making sandwiches, somebody still has to figure out what kind of bread to use, because you got to figure out how many vegetarian, how many ham, how many Swiss, how many with cheese, how many without cheese, where do you get mayonnaise from, where do you get mustard from, does anybody want relish? What kind of sandwiches are you offering? Does anybody put relish on them? Okay. Do you need chips to go with those? Do you need sodas? Who's going out and get them? And how do you diversify the chips and stuff like that? You could not plan that, but imagine what happens when you go to the grocery store. Do you get diet? Do you remember to get diet? You don't necessarily have if you plan it early enough, you have the opportunity to think through those things, as opposed to waiting till the last minute and then going out and just kind of hoping you get enough stuff and then getting back to the office and realizing you don't have everything. So that's why we go into this level of planning. You are going to have to do it anyway. And I want you to be comfortable being frustrated with me. I want you to be comfortable giving me pushback and asking me why I'm asking the questions. Because again, if I can't explain to you why I'm asking the question, then why the fuck am I asking? The same way that if you say that you have something that your business is supposed to be doing, I'm going to ask you why. Who said you have to do that? Because you need to make sure you're doing it for the right reason. The reason that benefits your business, not just because you saw somebody else do it, because you don't know why they did it. So again, I'm going to push you to a level of detail that you may be uncomfortable with and that other business owners aren't doing. I've had people who work with me and other people go and say like, yo, y'all doing way too much. Yes, absolutely. But guess what? My clients get money. My clients make money. And those are just facts. And guess what? I keep receipts. So if anybody wants me to give you some clients to talk to so they can tell you how wonderful I am, I have at it. But again, no one say I'm joking, but you all know I'm not. But the thing is that making sure you understand that it is going to be frustrating. It will be overwhelming. But part of this process is going through those feelings and working through them to the other side. Because as an entrepreneur, I'm sure, Claire can tell you this, it gets frustrating because you want to do so many things. You feel like you should be able to do so many things, and you get frustrated with yourself at times. And if you could work with me and get through those pieces of frustration, if you could work with me and see the future, and to know that you felt frustrated, you felt overwhelmed, and we've been able to push through and get you to the other side. But when it happens when you're by yourself, you will be more prepared to handle that and continue to move to your success. See if I can tell something else about you. You're also a perfectionist. You don't like putting bullshit out into the street, right?
Yes, I'm a Virgo, so.
But so that's one of the things that drives that behavior. Is not necessarily that you procrastinate just because you choose to procrastinate. Some of it may be that. But what I have found is that for a lot of people, that procrastination is a response of not being sure that everything is right. You want to keep waiting until you figure out everything, because what you have experienced is that things tend to be more complicated than you thought they were going to be. Yes, and so, and the cool part about it, and so let me tell you about me. I used to call it procrastinating, but I don't, because I realized I used to go Christmas shopping on December 24th every year. Every year I would wait to December. If I was doing it early, I may start December 22nd. You know why I did that, Desiree? I did it because I didn't want to make any more decisions. At the last minute, you don't have anything to think about. You do it, it's done, you move on. Especially if you've been able to do it at the last minute and it goes off successful, you don't even have an impetus to do it earlier. If you've been able to do it at the last minute and it always works out, you now get yourself in the habit of doing it at the last minute. What's more about that is that if you wait till the last minute, in this process, if you start earlier, I'm guessing that if you start earlier, you'll go down a rabbit hole and try to do this and add this bell, this whistle, this does, this, that, and then you're still pushing to the last minute, and it's a lot bigger than you started with. Is that accurate, Desiree?
Yeah, exactly.
And so a lot of times I will circle back to you all and talk about how you all need, because you all are entrepreneurs, you need to be especially kind to yourself. You have to be especially gentle because the world is not going to be. What you are talking about is not procrastination as it is a bad thing. It is a coping mechanism that you have designed so that you don't get overwhelmed with simple tasks. You push them off because if you start them early, it's not, you're still going to you're still going to finish at the last minute anyway, because you're just going to keep adding bells and whistles. So in order to keep you from doing that, you just wait to the last minute because there's other things in the priority list that you've done the same things too. But this is also part of the hustling process. If you have a system to do these things, then you don't have to worry about tweaking everything because that's not part of the system. And you have things done in a more orderly fashion that you can hand off to people. This also means that that behavior that you're engaged in, until you develop a plan around it, you'll still have a situation where you have to do everything, because the planning part is the part that will get stuff off of your plate. So as an entrepreneur, you always have the option of quitting. Always. That is always a choice that's available to you. And there's nothing wrong with it. I have started about 30 businesses. I've let about 22 of them just crash, just because they were experiments. I wanted to see if I put this out there, would people buy it? Why would they buy it? Okay, they bought it, cool. I was doing streaming audio before they had all these APIs and all this other stuff. I did it just to see what would happen, because I experiment with businesses so that you and other people don't have to. Most of the stuff that I'm telling you, I know because I tried it and I fucked it up myself. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes absolutely accidentally. But I've done these things because I wanted to know what happened. I take things apart to figure them out. That's how I came up with this process. I took building a business, that process, and I took it apart and broke it down to its basic components. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to go through. And the biggest component in your business development is your target customer. Because there that I recommend identifying individual people is because when you do what you're talking about is doing demographic information, using demographics to model for a particular population. So the idea is that people who make a certain amount of money, who live in a certain geography, certain ethnic, educational, all of these things shape their identity. The challenge with that is that you now are making a lot of assumptions and using stereotypes on people instead of actual information. The other problem with that is that by using demographics, more buying decision, especially as diverse as our economy has gotten now, most of the buying decisions are meted out or now are evaluated using psychographics. So figuring out the things that influence the decision making. I'll give you an example. My best friend and I, my line brother, we are both African American males who live in the greater, we live in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. We both have spent the majority of our lives in Baltimore. He lives in Prince George's County now. So we are demographically, we our incomes are relatively the same. Our professional background actually, are fairly the same. The thing is that we are vastly different people. Like most of the things about us are different. And so the ability, how you would advertise to him would be different on how you would advertise to me. And so if you know you want him, if you know like Steve is the type of dude I want in my company, then you should tailor your advertisements and your sales strategy to get somebody like Steve to buy from you. Because even though I fit the same demographics that Steve does, if I'm the person in those demographics, you're not going to get me. Or if Steve is the type of person that or he's the model of the demographics, the average, then you'll never get me. The problem that one of the things with small businesses and particularly micro enterprises is that a lot of us, if you're sitting on stacks, that's fine. you can go and do some trial and error. And some of it you will have to do trial and error because you're learning new stuff. But my thing is like, let's try to reduce as much of the trial and error as possible. I know that Rose would be interested in the Fosterpreneur project or the program because Rose is here. So if I know that I can get a sale out of Rose, if I can just replicate how I got Rose to join in, how I've given Rose feedback, how Rose is comfortable in the program, what kind of questions we should ask Rose, how we should engage Rose, then the next time we get a new Rose, we know where to send email. We know now we're going to be on YouTube because that's where roses are. Now we're going to be, because we never knew that roses were on YouTube. So, but now that we know that, because I've asked a real person a real question, now I have information that I did not have before based on what I believe. Because, I mean, hell, let's be honest. Erica is closer to your age than I am, and she's still old. No, you can tell her I said that. It's fine. But even with that, we don't know you. You know, so the more we can tailor it to you, the more we can get people like you. Does that address the issue around the why? Because if you have the technical ability and the money and other resources to do it, please go ahead and use avatars, use demographic information. My concern is that if you don't have enough money to do that, you need to work out as much detail as you can up front. We do this. This is part of your investigation and your fact finding. So I never tell. I think every video and every time I've talked about this, it's 3 to 10 people. Because you're right, Rose is not the only one. Because that's not the way we got Ashley or Danielle. We got them differently. And so what we end up doing, and the reason that we look at target customers, is that let's say there's 10 of you. So let's say I used each one of you and I went through all of those questions for each one of you. What I will find is that, let's say Rose is the only one who's on YouTube. And everybody else is like, I've never looked at YouTube for something like that. Let's say you go I go to workshops and I take classes. Well, that means that we have to get you another way. And what we end up looking at is that which one of those out of all 10 of you, how many of you have the same characteristics? How many of you all are all on Instagram? Okay, so that means Instagram, we can get this many doing Instagram. But things like, for example, the piece like YouTube, and I love that example, that would be an extra thing for us that wouldn't cost too much. You know, because we already have some videos and stuff that we put out. So just adding it to YouTube would recruit a Rose. And at the same time, we would still do the regular stuff that got DeMarco. So I used Rose in this one just because I wanted you all to see how this process worked. Because, I wanted you all to see how the process worked. But I do this for at least 3 or 4 people each time we get ready to do, each time, the cohort before this one, and for you all. We went through a similar process to this, a more refined process because we have more information, but something similar to this to figure it out, not just for one person. But that's why I always say 3 to 10. Just finding a real person. So if you are going to do something online, there should be, at least I would think, there's somebody you actually know who you can ask these questions. If not, then you have to go with more experimentation. You have to go with, let me put this kind of ad out there and see what happens. Let me put this type of post out there and see what happens. Let me put these types of products out there and see who buys. And it's a lot more trial and error. It's a lot more questioning. It's a lot more spending money trying to get information. What this process is designed to do is to keep you from having to try to figure it out. There's still a level of having to figure it out that you're going to do. But This process is designed for you to plan it out as best as possible. So like now, before I wouldn't have, and Rose, I don't know how I can thank you about this YouTube thing because it's a wonderful example. We never thought about really putting anything on YouTube as for marketing or anything like that. I think Erica may have had one of her videos out there one time, but I think she only did that to share it someplace else. But now we're going to continue, this helps us understand that we need to continue to do the stuff that we were doing before that got you all interested, but also now add YouTube to it. But that's only because we knew somebody. Now, as you start to sell stuff, you can do surveys and things like that. There are other organizations who actually do this research for you, but they require you to give them money. And so the issue is finding this information out about your target customer. I am lucky that I had Rose here. You may have to do surveys. You may have to ask people who you think may, but it's about getting this information so you're not just spending money doing trial and error and to see what might happen.
Okay, so let's talk about sales. I always start with the same point. Your potential customers don't care about you. Not that they're mean people or anything like that, but it's very important that entrepreneurs remember that people aren't there for you. They are there to purchase your services or to purchase your goods. That is their central goal. When I think about it, and the example that I use is when I go to a fast food restaurant to get something to eat, I don't stop and ask the owner which item on the menu should I get that will maximize their profit, or which item on the menu do they want me to get because it is the most or the one that they need to push the most. I don't do that. I go to the restaurant and I get what I want because that's what I want. It's not that I'm necessarily a bad person or that's not evidence of that. What it is that is the way commerce works in America. We get the things that we want because we want them. And as an entrepreneur, as a person who is doing sales, you need to remember that. Take yourself out of the equation and think about it from your potential customer's perspective. Now, your sales process begins way before you actually meet your potential customer. If that's the first time you've thought about selling something to that person, then that's a problem. Now, what sales may look like will differ depending on your industry and depending on what it is that you sell. But you need to start thinking about who your customer is before they even show up. If you're doing more targeted sales where you have an opportunity to get to know your customer, I would suggest you do all the research that you can. Look at their LinkedIn profile, look at their Facebook profile, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those things to give you a sense about what's important to your target or your potential customer. Because once you are able to understand what's important to them, you'll be in a better position to provide them solutions that actually fit who they are. The next thing to remember is being able to define what your articulable value proposition is. Now, what an articulable value proposition is just a fancy way of saying what is it that you bring to the table? What is it that you are offering that adds value to your potential customer? And it needs to be articulable, and not just that you can say it and it sounds good, but it needs to be said in a way that matters to your target customer. A lot of times entrepreneurs and salespeople get caught up in talking about the technical specifications of what a thing does because that's what we worked on. We worked on making sure that the service is wonderful, the product is just right, and it's the technical specifications that do that. Well, your target customer isn't really looking for that technical specification. They're looking for the value that technical specification brings. If you have all organic food, if that's your thing, you sell organic food, you don't need to talk about how organic it is. Talk about how it being organic or the way that you do it benefits the customer. How does it change their lives? How does it improve the quality of their existence? Speak in terms of that, and you'll be able to get them in a place where they're listening. Because if you can't get them to listen, sales is a lot harder. You also need to understand what your target or potential customer's core motivation is, because that will also inform how you share the value that you provide. Because if I'm looking for safety and you start selling me on price, well, there's a misalignment. You're talking about something that doesn't really matter to me, and I may start believing that you don't understand me enough to help me meet my needs. But if you start talking about how safe the product is, well, now you've piqued my curiosity. and now I just may buy. As you're putting together your value proposition, think about it also in terms of the activities that your business does. What is it that you do each step of the way? Because that type of information will also put you in a better position to help your clients align their delivery process or their delivery desires with what it is that your process entails to get it to that point. So if your process is making customized T-shirts, if your business is making customized T-shirts, and you have a process by which you talk to the client, and then you come up with a sketch, you show them the sketch, you take the sketch, create a screen print, then put the screen print on the shirts, and then print the shirts, quality control, and then deliver the shirts. Well, understanding how much time those things take and where you can be flexible, understanding how much lead time you need to make it will also give you an opportunity to negotiate not just on price, but maybe on time frame, maybe on volume. But you need to understand how your process works in order to even be positioned for that. In talking about what it is that your business does and the value that you bring, we talked a little bit about being able to articulate the value that your product or service has on the potential client based on their motivational factors. Again, make sure that you understand how what you're delivering impacts them. Make sure you understand the outcomes and what the impact will be for them long and short term. You want to make sure that if there are some downsides to your service or your business, that you let them know. Because there's nothing worse than developing rapport and developing trust with a potential client and then having that trust dashed because you didn't cross a T or dot an I. Akin to this is making sure that you understand your potential customer's sales cycle and timeline. This helps you position your business so that you can get the sale in the time frame that you want. It also helps you keep your pipeline, or what they call sales funnels now, helps keep it full. So if you're working with a government agency and they start putting together their budgets in October for the fiscal year beginning the next July, well, that means that you need to jump in then in order to get yourself included. But if you know that the decisions about what gets put in the budget in October starts to happen in July, well, then you need to jump in July to make it happen. An example of this is working with Baltimore City Public Schools. They have a pre-qualification process so that potential vendors can get on a list and they can bid and receive contracts above the $25,000 threshold. Well, that process begins in July and August. So if you're not involved in that process or preparing for that process in June or July, by the time you figure it out and get in, there are going to be a lot of other people who are already in that process or who've already completed that process, and they're in a position to get a contract, and you won't be. The next thing that I recommend that you do is get to know your potential customers. And when I say get to know them, I don't mean just demographically. Ages, genders, race, jurisdiction, or locality, not just those things. Focusing less on demographics and focusing more on psychographics. If you can understand how your potential customer makes a decision, you can get ahead of their decision-making process and position yourself so that you are the logical decision for them to make. So one of the first steps to do that is understanding why your potential customers want your product or service. And I start with want because in the research that I've done on human decision making and just my observations, I've learned that people focus more often on the things that they want and utilize facts and logic to support their desires. So if you understand why they want something, you'll be better positioned to get them to choose you. Also, though, understand why they need your product or service. Because sometimes people don't even understand that they need what you're offering. In early 2020, we did not realize that we needed to increase our stockpiles, personal, state, and federal, of disinfectants and personal protective equipment. Most of us didn't even know what personal protective equipment was. But if somebody had been trying to sell us stuff and really guiding us to understand the need, that new knowledge may have shifted our wants and really have put them in a position by educating us to get us to buy from them. The last thing on this slide specifically is figuring out what it is that your potential customer needs to experience, what they need to see or what they need to smell or what they need to know in order to consider your product or service. If you look at places like Burger King, they always have their vents like just really pushing out that flame broiled smell. If you look at places like Tiffany's, they're always in the more upscale portions of malls and places like that, or places where people with resources go. And one of the reasons that these organizations do this type of marketing is because it works. They understand that people go to these places, or like for Burger King, they understand that smell will help somebody understand or remember or think about them as a solution. Tiffany's knows that people go to malls, especially the higher end malls, and they want to spend money. And Tiffany has a brand that is aligned with some of those more the luxury malls and things like that. Now, as you're in a position to negotiate prices and things like that, there are some things that you need to know about your side of the equation. You need to understand how much your product or service actually costs you. The Chamber does a really great workshop on job costing, and we're also more than happy to sit down with any of our members and really talk you through how you do your job costing and provide some strategies to help you develop that skill set if you don't already have it. But if you don't understand how much your product or service costs you, how are you going to be in a position to negotiate price or negotiate any of the other terms? Understanding how the price for your product or service is calculated. Because even if you understand, like, let's say your service costs $50 an hour, if you understand how that $50 an hour is calculated, you may be able to restructure your offering to take advantage of maybe some efficiencies that the client has or some resources that the client may bring to bear. If you make t-shirts and you sell the t-shirts for $12 a pop, to a retail client, a client who sells them retail, if that client has shirts themselves that they just want you to do the printing for, well, you have to be prepared to have that conversation. But if you don't know how the price point is calculated, you won't be in a position to do that. Also, if you are not the business owner, make sure that you understand what price and terms you can negotiate and which ones you can't. Because sometimes you don't know that you could have negotiated on a term or delivery time, or you might be able to offer a discount if they pay you early, or you may help the clients with cash flow issues, give them longer payment terms, but it'll cost them a little bit more. But if you don't understand what you can negotiate, you just go in there flat-footed with, hey, here's the price, here's the terms, do you want it or do you not? That's not a really good position from which to negotiate. The last thing is to make sure that you really do understand why you want this potential customer. Because if you're just chasing money or chasing business, you will find out very soon that all money ain't good money. You may end up having a client that you don't want, and it's okay to fire a client, but it's better to understand why you want the client in the first place. And so, as you are negotiating, if it does not feel or seem that they are who you thought they would be, or that the deal is not going to be what you thought it would be, it's okay to back out of that when you realize it. Absolutely okay. Just make sure that you do it sooner than later and that everybody's on the same page. Okay, as you get ready to prepare to make the pitch, this is the time for you to practice. One of the ways that you can practice is by coming up with the alternative to your offering. So articulate what other options your potential customer may have that meet the wants that you have identified earlier. The alternative should also include doing nothing. A lot of times we look at our competition and we look at other alternatives, actual tangible things or services that they can get, but also realize that nothing is also an alternative. You have some people who need life-saving medicines, and like diabetic, they may need insulin to survive. But some of them still don't get it for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's fear of the medication, sometimes it's a misunderstanding, but doing nothing is still an option for them. Now, once you understand that doing nothing is an option and you can run down all of the options that are available to them, you are in a much better position to position your business to meet their wants and also their needs. Articulate the reasons why the potential customer should select the alternative and how the alternatives meet their needs. Again, you are trying to look at this from their perspective. If it makes sense for them to use one of your competitors, really work that out. Why does it make sense? And then figure out what you can do to make your business or your offering make more sense. Be able to clearly explain the value that you add. Just being able to say, I can help you improve your business, or I can help you get more clients. Well, no, be able to be clear about it. I can help you get this many more clients. Together we can do this. We can save this much money. Give them as many details as you can. Make sure that you can deliver what you promise, but give them as many details as you can so they can make a truly informed decision. As you're preparing for the pitch, make sure you pull together your materials in a way that makes sense for the customer. You've done a lot of research on this potential customer. You understand how they think. You understand what they're looking for. You understand sometimes more about them than they understand about themselves. Make sure you lay that information out in a way that makes sense for them. There are some people that you need to start with price first, because they're waiting for the price and they're not really not listening to anything else that you say until you talk about price. Then you have some other people that want to know everything about it, the level of detail, how it works, the process or whatever. You need to make sure that you give them the presentation that makes sense for them. But again, it's about understanding who they are. Until you're writing your own checks, your opinion doesn't really matter now, does it? Make sure your ask is clear to the potential customer and the value proposition is one that they actually want. I've seen so many people not close sales because they didn't just ask for the business. What is it that you want? Do you want X number of shipments, or do you want to give them X hours of services for X amount of dollars? Make sure that you're very clear about the ask and all the things that the ask entails. The last thing is to make sure that you're prepared to adapt your materials, offer, and presentation to the customer's reasonable request. And I cannot stress that this needs to be reasonable. A lot of times they say the customer is always right. That is not true. You need to make sure that you address your customer's needs, but if it doesn't work for your business, it doesn't work for the customer. You're not trying to bankrupt your business to make sure that the customer has what they need. You need to make sure that it's a win-win, it's beneficial
to both parties.
So I hope that was helpful. No role playing, no scripts, no acting. Just this is what happened. This is what we do. This is how we serve our clients. And so I am hopeful that it is helpful to you, and hopefully you give us a call at the Grinding Gang so that we can help you too. All right. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and we'll be back tomorrow.